G.I. Joe is an American media franchise and a line of action figures owned and produced by the toy company Hasbro. The initial product offering represented 4 of the branches of the U.S. Armed Forces, with the Action Soldier, the U.S. Army, Action Sailor, representing the U.S. Navy, Action Pilot, U.S. Air Force, Action Marine, U.S. Marine Corps, Action Lifeline, U.S. Coast Guard, and later on the Action Nurse. The name is derived from the usage of G.I. Joe for the generic U.S. soldier, itself derived from the more general term G.I. The development of G.I. Joe led to the coining of the term action figure. G.I. Joe's appeal to children has made it an American icon among toys. The G.I. Joe trademark has been used by Hasbro for several different toy lines, although only 2 have been successful. The original 12-inch line, introduced on February 1st of 1964, centered on realistic action figures. In the United Kingdom, this line was licensed to Palitoy and known as Action Man. In 1982, the line was relaunched in a 3.75-inch scale, complete with vehicles, playsets, and a complex background story involving an ongoing struggle between the G.I. Joe team and the evil Cobra organization, which seeks to take over the free world through terrorism. As the American line evolved into the Real American Hero series, Action Man also changed by using the same molds and being renamed as Action Force. Although the members of the G.I. Joe team are not superheroes, they all had expertise in areas such as martial arts, weapons, and explosives. G.I. Joe was inducted into the National Hall of Fame right here in my city at the Strong Museum in Rochester, New York in 2004, and into the Pop Culture Hall of Fame in 2017. Each year, G.I. Joe is celebrated on February 1st to make the start of the brand. The line made its first public appearance at the New York Toy Fair on February 9th of 1964, 1 week after being launched. As a side note, I do have a full documentary on G.I. Joe on another one of my channels. I couldn't put it on this channel just due to monetary reasons. I will put that link down in the description. When Hasbro launched the G.I. Joe The Real American Hero toy line in 1982 alongside the Marvel Comics series, it commissioned Marvel Productions to produce a series of fully animated 30-second television commercials, which were broadcast in order to promote the comic book publication, since advertising regulations for a literary work were more lax than for a direct toy commercial. The commercial for the first issue began airing throughout the spring of 1982. The popularity of these commercials led to the production of a 5-part G.I. Joe miniseries aired in 1983, later titled The Mass Device, when it re-aired as part of the ongoing series. The plot centers on the titular Mass Device, a powerful matter transporter, and G.I. Joe and Cobra's race around the world to acquire the 3 catalytic elements which power the machine. A second 5-part miniseries followed in 1984, G.I. Joe The Revenge of Cobra, titled The Weather Dominator, in later airings, with a similar plot that involved the Joes and Cobra traveling around the world to recover the scattered fragments of Cobra's new weather-controlling machine, The Weather Dominator. Both miniseries were written by Ron Friedman. G.I. Joe was promoted to a full series in 1985 with an initial order for a first season of 55 more episodes in order to make up the required 65 episodes for syndication. This season began with a third Friedman-penned 5-part adventure, The Pyramid of Darkness. The story sees most of the existing cast from the 2 previous miniseries held captive by Cobra, while a new assortment of characters, that is, the new 1985 range of toys, thwart Cobra's attempts to surround the Earth with the electricity, negating Pyramid of Darkness. Both the new and old characters then shared the spotlight throughout the course of the remaining 50 episodes of the series, which were primarily standalone single-episode adventures, with the occasional 2-part story. The season was story edited by Steve Gerber. A second season of 30 episodes followed in 1986, beginning with a 4th 5-part story, Arise Serpentor Arise, in which Cobra scientist Dr. Mindbender, inspired by a reoccurring dream, uses the DNA of history's most ruthless conquerors and rulers to genetically engineer Serpentor, who usurps Cobra Commander's leadership of Cobra. This miniseries introduced the new 1986 range of toys into the story, which were at the center of most stories across the rest of the season. In particular, the miniseries debuted former WWF and then current AWA professional wrestler Sergeant Slaughter as a member of G.I. Joe, played by himself. G.I. Joe the Movie, an animated feature-length film version of the series, was intended to be released theatrically, followed by the release of the Transformers the movie. However, the movie encountered unexpected production delays, which allowed the Transformers feature to be released first. Due to the poor box office performance of the Transformers and My Little Pony films, G.I. Joe was relegated to direct-to-video status. It was released on VHS on April 20th of 1987 and was later split into a 5-part miniseries for television syndication. The movie follows up on the events of Season 2, revealing that Cobra Commander is actually an agent of a secret civilization known as Cobra La, led by half-serpent being named Galopus. The same organization is also revealed to have a hand in the creation of Serpentor, as the dream that inspired Dr. Mindbender to create him is revealed to be subconscious suggestion that was implanted into his mind by one of Galumpulo's bugs called Psychic Motivator. In addition to Cobra La, 2 new sub-teams were introduced within the Joe team, the Rawhides and the Renegades, both of which were composed of characters which were introduced into the toy line during the 1987 lineup. Marvel Productions continued to produce animated commercials for the toy line and comic books, which featured a new theme song with the lyrics, "Nobody Beats G.I. Joe," after the broadcast of G.I. Joe Movie, which was intended to set up Season 3. However, the company never produced a 3rd season, ending up losing its license to the competing animation company DIC during pre-production. Michael Charles Hill, who wrote several episodes of the show, had already proposed an outline for Season 3 that would have followed the events of the movie. In this unmade 3rd season, a criminal organization named the Coil, composed of surviving members of Cobra Command, led by Tomax and Exomot, would have served as a new enemy faction, while a mutated Cobra Commander would have tried to secretly rebuild his organization after the destruction of Cobra La, shifting allegiance between the Coil and the Joes in order to further his own ambitions. A second G.I. Joe, A Real American Hero series was produced by DIC Entertainment that ran from 1989 to 1991. It premiered with a 5-part miniseries which was titled Operation Dragonfire, lasted 2 seasons, and consisted of a total of 44 episodes. The DIC series served as a continuation of the Sunbow series, but it did not use the aforementioned Season 3 pitch. Sunbow would later return to the G.I. Joe franchise, co-producing the 1994 straight-to-video animated pilot Sergeant Savage and His Screaming Eagles, and the G.I. Joe Extreme TV series, which aired from 1995 to 1996. The Screaming Eagles pilot featured appearances by characters from the A Real American Hero series, namely Hawk, Doc, Lady J, and Cobra Commander, in supporting roles, but its primary focus was on new heroes and villains. In the cinema, G.I. Joe is a series of American military science fiction action film based on the toy line of the same name. Development for the first film began in 2003, but when the United States launched the invasion of Iraq in March of 2003, Hasbro suggested adapting the Transformers instead. In 2009, the first film was released, G.I. Joe, The Rise of Cobra. A second film, G.I. Joe Retaliation, was released in 2013. A third film centered on Snake Eyes titled Snake Eyes, G.I. Joe Origins, also serving as a reboot of the series, was released in 2021. And a fourth film, G.I. Joe Ever Vigilant, is confirmed to be in active development. A crossover film with the Transformers is also being developed. The first film in the series was released on August 7th of 2009. It grossed $302 million worldwide. It was directed by Stephen Sommers from a screenplay by Stuart Beatty, David Elliott, and Paul Lovett, and a story by Michael B. Gordon, Beatty, and Sommers. In 1994, Larry Kazanoff and his production company, Threshold Entertainment, had held the rights to do a live-action G.I. Joe film with Warner Brothers as a distributor. Instead, they chose to concentrate their efforts on their Mortal Kombat films. As late as 1999, there had been rumors that a film from Threshold Entertainment was still a possibility, but that project was canceled. In 2003, Lorenzo di Bonaventura was interested in making a film about advanced military technology. Hasbro's Brian Goldner called him and suggested to base the film on the G.I. Joe toy line. Goldner and Bonaventura worked together before creating toy lines for films Bonaventura produced as CEO of Warner Brothers. Goldner and Bonaventura spent 3 months working out a story and chose Michael B. Gordon as screenwriter writer because they liked his script for 300. Bonaventura wanted to pick the origin story of certain characters and introduced the new character of Rex to allow an exploration of Duke. Rex's name came from Hasbro. Beforehand, Don Murphy was interested in filming the property, but when the Iraq War broke out, he considered the subject matter inappropriate and chose to develop Transformers, another Hasbro toy line, instead. Bonaventura felt what the Joes stand for and what Duke stands for specifically in the movie is something that I'd like to think a worldwide audience might connect with. By February of 2005, Paul Lovett and David Elliott, who wrote Bonaventura's four brothers, were rewriting Gordon's draft. In their script, the Rex character is corrupted and mutated into the Cobra Commander, whom Destro needs to lead an army of super soldiers. Skip Woods was rewriting the script by March of 2007, and he added the Alex Mann character from the British Action Man toy line. Bonaventura explained, "Unfortunately, our president has put us in a position internationally where it would be very difficult to release a movie called G.I. Joe. To add one character to the mix is sort of a fun thing to do." The script was leaked online by Al Mayembe of Latino Review, who revealed Woods had dropped the Cobra organization in favor of Naja Ryan, a crooked CIA agent. In this draft, Scarlet is married to Action Man, but still has feelings for Duke, and is killed by the Baroness. Snake Eye speaks, but his vocal cords are slashed during the story, rendering him mute. Mayembe suggested Stuart Beatty rewrite the script. Fan response to the film following the script review was negative. Bonaventura promised with subsequent rewrites, "I'm hoping we're going to get it right this time." He admitted he had problems with Cobra, concurring with an interview, "They were probably the stupidest evil organization out there," is depicted in the cartoon. Hasbro promised to write Cobra back into the script. In August of 2007, Paramount Pictures hired Stephen Sommers to direct the film after his presentation to CEO Brad Gray and production Prexy. Brad Weston was well received. Sommers had been inspired to explore the G.I. Joe universe after visiting Hasbro's headquarters in Rhode Island. The project had found the momentum based on the success of Transformers, with Bonaventura produced with Murphy. Sommers partly signed on to direct because the concept reminded him of James Bond, and he described an underwater battle in the story as a tribute to Thunderball. Stuart Beatty was hired to write a new script for Sommers' film, and G.I. Joe comic and file card writer Larry Hama was hired as creative consultant. Hama helped them change story elements that fans would have disliked and made it closer to the comics. Ultimately deciding fans would enjoy the script, he persuaded them to drop a comic scene at the film's end, where Snake Eyes speaks, to speed up production before the 2007-2008 Writers Guild of America strike. John Lee Hancock, Brian Koppelman, and David Levion also assisted in writing various scenes. Goldner said their inspiration was generally Hama's comic and not the cartoon. Sommers said had it not been for the rich backstory in the franchise, the film would have fallen behind schedule because of the strike. After Variety had reported that G.I. Joe became a Brussels-based outfit that stands for Global Integrated Joint Operating Entity, there were reports of outrage over Paramount's alleged attempt to change the origin of the G.I. Joe team. Hasbro responded on its G.I. Joe website, claiming it was not changing what the G.I. Joe brand is about, and the name G.I. Joe will always be synonymous with bravery and heroism. Instead, it would be a modern telling of the G.I. Joe vs. Cobra storyline, based out of the pit as they were throughout the 1980s comic book series. The second film in the series released on March 28th of 2013 in 3D and IMAX 3D. It grossed $375 million worldwide. It was directed by John M. Chu from a screenplay written by Rhett Reese and Paul Wernick. For the second film, after the financial successful release of The Rise of Cobra, Rob Moore, the studio vice chairman of Paramount Pictures, stated in 2009 that a sequel would be developed. In January of 2011, Rhett Reese and Paul Wernick, the writers of Zombieland, were hired to write the script for the sequel. The film was originally thought to be titled G.I. Joe Cobra Strikes, which was later denied by Reese. Stephen Sommers was originally going to return as director of the sequel, but Paramount Pictures announced in February of 2011 that John Chu would direct the sequel. In 2011, the sequel's name was revealed to be G.I. Joe Retaliation. Chu would later declare that Paramount wanted to reboot that also served as a sequel to The Rise of Cobra, since a lot of people saw the first movie, so we don't want to alienate that and redo the whole thing. In May of 2018, Paramount announced a film centered on Snake Eyes, with Evan Spiliotopoulos, I think that's how you say his name, hired to write the script. In December, Robert Schwenke signed as a director with principal photography scheduled to take place in Japan, Vancouver, British Columbia, and Canada, and Los Angeles, California. Ray Park was later reported to not reprise the role as the film deals with the character's origin story. Ray Park played Snake Eyes in the first two G.I. Joe live-action movies. By August of 2019, Henry Golding was cast as Snake Eyes, while Andrew Koji was set to portray Storm Shadow, replacing Lee Byung-hun, who portrayed the character in previous films. Kamani Ray Smith was hired as stunt coordinator on the project. In September of 2019, Aiko Iwas, I'm sure I butchered that, entered negotiations to portray Hard Master, while Ursula Cobero was cast as Anastasia Cicerovana, the Baroness, replacing Sienna Miller, who played the character in G.I. Joe: The Rise of Cobra. James Madigan was hired as the second unit director after previously working on G.I. Joe: Retaliation. On October of 2019, Samara Weaving was cast as Shauna O'Hara, Scarlet, replacing Rochelle Nichols, who previously portrayed the character in G.I. Joe: The Rise of Cobra, while Takira Hira, Haruko Abe, and Stephen Elric were cast in undisclosed roles. The film was originally scheduled for an October 23rd, 2020 release date and was delayed, being released July 23rd of 2021 due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Snake Eyes grossed $28.3 million in the United States, ouch, and Canada, and $11.8 million in other territories, for a worldwide total of $40.1 million, with a production budget of at least $88 million. Double ouch. The film needed to gross about 160 to 175 million in order to break even. I haven't even seen this film yet, and I don't even know if I'm interested in seeing it. It didn't do very well on Rotten Tomatoes. It got a 4.9 out of 10. I don't think anyone was jazzed about it, and quite frankly, the first two G.I. Joe movies weren't all that great. They kind of did the same thing they did with the X-Men. They went for all black costumes. I guess that was the thinking back then. Thankfully, Marvel and the Marvel Cinematic Universe changed that up with actually doing comic accurate costumes for the characters. So hopefully down the line when they do a new G.I. Joe movie, they'll take that to heart and do comic book and cartoon accurate costumes, because I think that would be cool, and I think that's actually what the fans actually want. So that concludes our journey down G.I. Joe, comic books and toys and cartoons and movies. Transformers is a media franchise produced by American toy company Hasbro and Japanese toy company Takara Tomy. It primarily follows the heroic Autobots and the villainous Decepticons, the two alien robot factions at war that can transform into other forms such as vehicles and animals. The franchise encompasses toys, animation, comic books, video games, and films. The franchise began in 1984 with the Transformers toy line, comprising transforming mecha toys from Takara's Dio clone and micro-change toy lines rebranded for Western markets. The term Generation 1, or G1, covers both the animated television series, the Transformers, and the comic book series of the same name, which are further divided into Japanese, British, and Canadian spin-offs. Sequels followed, such as the Generation 2 comic book and Beast Wars TV series, which became its own mini-universe. Generation 1 characters have been rebooted multiple times in the 21st century in comics, from Dreamwave Productions starting in 2001, IDW Publishing starting in 2005 and again in 2019, and Skybound Entertainment beginning in 2023. There have been other incarnations of the story based on different toy lines during and after the 20th century. The first was the Robots in Disguise series, followed by 3 shows, Armada, Energon, and Cybertron, that constitute a single universe called the Unicron Trilogy. A live-action film series started in 2007, again distinct from previous incarnations, while the Transformers animated series merged concepts from the G1 continuity, the 2007 live-action film, and the Unicron Trilogy. For most of the 2010s, in an attempt to mitigate the wave of reboots, the aligned continuity was established. In 2018, Transformers Cyberverse debuted once again, distinct from the previous incarnations. Also in 2018, Hasbro launched a separate toy line called Transformers War for Cybertron, which featured 3 Netflix miniseries released from 2020 to 2021. Another series, Transformers Earthspark, debuted in 2022, again separated from previous continuities. The 2024 animated film Transformers 1 once again takes place in a new continuity. Although a separate and competing franchise started in 1983, Tonko's GoBots became the intellectual property of Hasbro after their buyout of Tonka in 1991. Subsequently, the universe depicted in the animated series, Challenge of the GoBots, and the follow-up film, GoBots Battle of the Rock Lords, was retroactively established as an alternate universe within the Transformers multiverse. The Transformers is an animated television series that originally aired from September 17th to 1984 to November 11th of 1987 in syndication based upon Hasbro and Takara's Transformers toy line, the first television series in the Transformers franchise that depicts a war among giant robots that can transform into vehicles and other objects. The series was produced by Marvel Productions and Sunbow Productions in association with Japanese studio Toyo Animation for the first-run syndication. Toyo co-produced the show as the main animated studio for its first 2 seasons, having been tasked with creating and finalizing animation models, designing transformation schemes, storyboarding some episodes, and general direction. In the 3rd season, Toyo's involvement in the production team was reduced, and the animation services were shared with the South Korean studio ACOM. The show's supervising producer, Nelson Shin, was also ACOM's founder. The 4th season was entirely animated by ACOM. The series was supplemented by a feature film, The Transformers the Movie, in 1986, taking place between the 2nd and 3rd seasons. This series is also popularly known as Generation 1, a term originally coined by fans in response to the rebranding of the franchise as Transformers Generation 2 in 1992, which eventually made its way into official use. The Transformers toy line and animated series were inspired by the Japanese toy line Microman, a Far Eastern descendant of the 12-inch G.I. Joe action figure series by Takara. In 1980, the Microman spin-off Dioclone was released, featuring inch-tall humanoid figures able to sit in the driver's seats of scale model vehicles, which could transform into humanoid robot bodies the drivers piloted. Later, still in 1983, a Microman subline, Microchange, was introduced, featuring actual-size items that transformed into robots, such as microcassettes, guns, and toy cars. Dioclone and Microchange toys were subsequently discovered at the 1983 Tokyo Toy Fair by Hasbro Toy Company product developer Harry Orenstein, who presented the concept to Hasbro's head of R&D, George Dunze. Enthusiastic about the product, it was decided to release toys from both Dioclone and Microchange as one toy line for their markets, although there were eventually changes to the color schemes from the original toys to match the new series. By 1984, U.S. regulators had removed many of the restrictions regarding the placement of promotional content within children's television programming. The way was cleared for the new product-based television program. Hasbro had previously worked with Marvel Comics to develop G.I. Joe, a real American hero, for a 3-pronged market scheme: the toy line, a tie-in comic book by Marvel, and an animated miniseries co-produced by Marvel's media arm, Marvel Productions, and the Griffin Bascal advertising agency's Sunbow Productions production house. Given the success of that strategy, the process was repeated in 1984 when Hasbro marketing vice president Bob Pruppis approached Marvel to develop their new robot series, which Jay Bacal dubbed Transformers. Marvel's editor-in-chief at the time, Jim Shooter, produced a rough story concept for the series, creating the idea of the 2 warring factions of alien robots, the heroic Autobots and the evil Decepticons. To flesh out his concept, Shooter called upon veteran editor Dennis O'Neil to create character names and profiles for the cast, but O'Neil's work did not meet with Hasbro's expectations, and they requested heavy revisions. O'Neil declined to make said revisions, and the project was turned down by several writers and editors approached by Shooter until editor Bob Budiansky accepted the task. Hastily performing the revisions over a weekend, Budiansky's new names and profiles were a hit with Hasbro, and production began on a bi-monthly 4-issue comic book miniseries and 3-part television pilot. Both the comic and cartoon would wind up continuing for years beyond these short-term beginnings. using Budiansky's original development work as a springboard to tell the story of the Transformers in very different ways from one another, forming two separate, unrelated continuities for the brand out of the gate. Japanese designer Shohei Kohara was responsible for creating the earliest character models for the Transformers cast, greatly humanizing the toy designs to create more approachable robot characters for the comic and cartoon. His designs were subsequently simplified by Fiora Derry, who went on to become the lead designer for the series, creating many more concepts and designs in the future. This series focuses on the Transformers split into two warring factions, the heroic Autobots and those evil Decepticons, as they crash land on Earth and continue their eons-long conflict there. Transformers is a series of science fiction action films based on the Transformers franchise. Michael Bay directed the first 5 live-action films: Transformers in 2007, Revenge of the Fallen in 2009, Dark of the Moon 2011, Age of Extinction 2014, and The Last Night 2017, and has served as a producer for subsequent films. A 6th film, Bumblebee, directed by Travis Knight, was released in 2018, while a 7th film, Rise of the Beast, directed by Stephen Caple Jr., was released in 2023. The series has been distributed by Paramount Pictures and DreamWorks Pictures, with the latter working on the first 2 films. While the Transformers film series has received negative to mixed reception, Bumblebee received positive reviews. Despite its critical reception, the Transformers film series has generally been successful at the box office, with The Dark of the Moon and Age of Extinction grossing over $1 billion each. The latter was the highest grossing film of 2014. It is the 14th highest grossing film series, with a total of $5.29 billion grossed over 7 films to date. Transformers 2007. For the film, producer Don Murphy was planning a G.I. Joe film adaptation, but when the U.S. launched the invasion of Iraq in March of 2003, Hasbro suggested adapting the Transformers franchise instead. Todd DeSanto joined Murphy because he was a fan of the series. They met with comic book writer Simon Furman and cited the Generation 1 cartoon and comics as their main influence. They made the Creation Matrix their plot device, though Murphy had it renamed because of the film series The Matrix. DeSanto chose to write the treatment from a human point of view to engage the audience, while Murphy wanted it to have a realistic tone reminiscent of a disaster film. The treatment featured the Autobots Optimus Prime, Ironhide, Jazz, Prowl, Arcee, Ratchet, Wheeljack, and Bumblebee, and the Decepticons Megatron, Starscream, Soundwave, Ravage, Laserbeak, Rumble, Skywarp, and Shockwave. Steven Spielberg, a fan of the comics and toys, signed on as executive producer in 2004. John Rogers wrote the first draft, which pitted 4 Autobots against 4 Decepticons and featured the Ark spaceship. Robert Orci and Alex Kurtzman, fans of the cartoon, were hired to rewrite the script in February of 2005. Spielberg suggested that a boy and his car should be the focus. This appealed to Orci and Kurtzman because it conveyed themes of adulthood and responsibility, the things that a car represents in the United States. The characters of Sam and Michaela were sole point of view given in Orci and Kurtzman's first draft. The Transformers had no dialogue, as the producers feared talking robots would look ridiculous. The writers felt that even if it would look silly, not having the robots speak would betray the fan base. The first draft also had a battle scene in the Grand Canyon. Spielberg read each of Orci and Kurtzman's drafts and gave notes for improvement. The writers remained involved throughout the production, adding additional dialogue for the robots during the sound mixing, although none of this was kept in the final film, which ran 15 minutes shorter than the initial edit. Furman's The Ultimate Guide, published by Dorling Kindersley, remained as a resource to the writers throughout production. Prime Directive was used as a fake working title. This was also the name of Dreamway Productions' first Transformers comic book. Michael Bay was asked to direct by Spielberg on July 30th of 2005, but he dismissed the film as a stupid toy movie. Nonetheless, he wanted to work with Spielberg and gained a new respect for the mythology upon visiting Hasbro. Bay considered the first draft too kiddie, so he increased the military's role in the story, the writers sought inspiration from G.I. Joe for the soldier characters, being careful not to mix the brands. Because Orky and Kurtzman were concerned the film could feel like a military recruitment commercial, they chose to make the military believe nations like Iran were behind the Decepticon attack, as well as making the Decepticons primarily military vehicles. Bay-based Lennox has struggled to get to the Pentagon phone line while struggling with an unhelpful operator from a real account he was given by a soldier when working on another film. Orky and Kurtzman experimented with numerous robots from the franchise, ultimately selecting the characters most popular among the filmmakers to form the final cast. Bay acknowledged that most of the Decepticons were selected before their names or roles were developed, as Hasbro had to start designing the toys. Some of their names were changed because Bay was upset that they had been leaked. Optimus, Megatron, Bumblebee, and Starscream were the only characters present in each version of the script. Arcee was a female Transformer introduced by Orky and Kurtzman, but she was cut because they found it difficult to explain robotic gender. Bay also disliked her motorcycle form, which he found too small. An early idea to have the Decepticons simultaneously strike multiple places around the world was also dropped, being used later in the film's sequel. And speaking of the film's sequel, Transformers Revenge of the Fallen from 2009. In September of 2007, Paramount announced a late June 2009 release date for the sequel to Transformers. A major hurdle that was overcome during the film's production was the 2007-2008 Writers Guild of America strike, as well as possible strikes by the Directors Guild of America and the Screen Actors Guild. Bay began creating animatics of action sequences featuring characters rejected for the 2007 film. This would allow animators to complete sequences if the Directors Guild of America went on strike in July of 2008, which ultimately did not happen. The director considered making a small project in between Transformers and its sequel, but knew you have your baby and you don't want someone else to take it. The film was given a $200 million budget, which was $50 million more than the 2007 film, and some of the action scenes rejected for the original were written into the sequel, such as the Optimus is reintroduced in this film. Lorenzo di Bonaventura said the studio proposed filming two sequels simultaneously, but he and Bay concurred that was not the right direction for the series. Writers Roberto Orky and Alex Kurtzman originally passed on the sequel because of a busy schedule. The studio began courting other writers in May of 2007, but as they were unimpressed with their pitches, they convinced Orky and Kurtzman to return. The studio also signed on Iron Kruger as he impressed Bay and Hasbro president Brian Goldner with his knowledge of the Transformers mythology, and because he was friends with Orky and Kurtzman. The writing trio were paid $8 million. Screenwriting was interrupted by the 2007-2008 Writers Guild of America strike, but to avoid production delays, the writers spent 2 weeks writing a treatment which they handed in the night before the strike began, and Bay expanded the outline into a 60-page scriptment, fleshing out the action, adding more jokes, as well as selecting the majority of new characters. The three writers spent 4 months finishing the screenplay while locked in 2 hotel rooms by Bay. Kruger wrote in his own room, and the trio would check on each other's work twice a day. Orky described the film's theme as being away from home, with the Autobots contemplating living on Earth as they cannot restore Cybertron while Sam goes to college. He wanted the focus between the robots and humans much more evenly balanced, the stakes be higher, and the science fiction elements more prominent. Lorenzo di Bonaventura said that in total there are around 40 robots in the film, while ILM's Scott Ferrier has said there were actually 60. Orky added that he wanted to modulate the humor more and felt he managed the more outrageous jokes by balancing them with a more serious plot approach to the Transformers mythology. That's what we want in a Transformers film, jokes. Bay concurred that he wanted to please fans by making the tone darker and that moms will think it's safe enough to bring the kids back out to the movies despite his trademark sense of humor. Before Transformers was released, producer DeSanto had a very cool idea to introduce the Dinobots. While Bay was interested in an aircraft aircraft carrier, which was dropped from the 2007 film. Orky claimed that they did not incorporate these characters into Revenge of the Fallen because they could not think of a way to justify the Dinobots' choice of form, and were unable to fit in the aircraft carrier. Orky also admitted he was also dismissive on the Dinobots because he does not like dinosaurs. I recognize I am weird in that department, he said, but he became fonder of them during filming because of their popularity with fans. He added, I couldn't see why a Transformer would feel the need to disguise himself in front of a bunch of lizards. Movie-wise, I mean. Once the general audience is fully on board with the whole thing, maybe Dinobots in the future. Bay said he hated the Dinobots, and they had never been in consideration for being featured in the movies. It is the last film in the series to be distributed by DreamWorks. Transformers: Dark of the Moon from 2011. For the third film, as a preemptive measure before the release of Revenge of the Fallen, Michael Lucci and Paramount announced on March 16, 2009 that a third film would be released in IMAX 3D on July 1st of 2011, which earned a surprised response from director Bay saying, I said I was taking off a year from Transformers. Paramount made a mistake in dating Transformers 3. They asked me on the phone. I said yes to July 1st, but for 2012. Whoops, not 2011. That would mean I would have to start prep in September. No way, my brain needs a break from fighting robots. Screenwriters Robert Orci and Alex Kurtzman, who had worked on the two previous Transformers films, declined to return for the third film, with Kurtzman declaring that the franchise is so wonderful that it deserves to be fresh all the time. We just felt like we'd given it a lot and didn't have an insight for where to go with it next. Revenge of the Fallen's co-writer Iron Kruger became the sole screenwriter for Dark of the Moon. Kruger had frequent meetings with Industrial Light and Magic's CGI visual effects producers who suggested plot points such as the scenes in Chernobyl. On October 1st of 2009, Bay revealed that Dark of the Moon had already gone into pre-production and its planned release was back to its original intended date of July 1st of 2011 rather than 2012. Due to the revived interest in 3D technology brought in by the success of Avatar, talks between Paramount, ILM, and Bay had considered the possibility of the next Transformers film being filmed in 3D, and testing was performed to bring the technology into Bay's work. Bay originally was not much interested in the format as he felt it did not fit his aggressive style of filmmaking, but he was convinced after talks with Avatar director James Cameron, who even offered the technical crew from that film. Cameron reportedly told Bay about 3D, you gotta look at it as a toy. It's another fun tool to help get emotion in character and create an experience. Bay was reluctant to film with 3D cameras since in test he found them to be too cumbersome for his filming style, but he did not want to implement the technology in post-production either, since he was not pleased with the results. In addition to using the 3D Fusion camera rigs developed by Cameron's team, Bay and the team spent 9 months developing a more portable 3D camera that would be brought into location. On the day of the film's release, Shia LaBeouf announced that Dark of the Moon would be his last Transformers film. In a hidden extra for the Blu-ray release of Revenge of the Fallen, Bay expressed his intention to make Transformers 3 not necessarily larger than Revenge of the Fallen, but instead deeper into the mythology, to give it more character development, and to make it darker and more emotional. Having been called Transformers 3 up to that point, the film's final title was revealed to be Dark of the Moon in October of 2010. After Revenge of the Fallen was panned by critics, Bay acknowledged the general flaws of the script, having blamed the 2007-2008 Writers Guild of America strike prior to the film for many problems. Bay promised to not have the dorky comedy from the last film. Transformers: Age of Extinction from 2014. In February of 2012, producer D. Bonaventura stated that a fourth film was in the works, aiming for a 2014 release, with Michael Bay to direct and produce. On the same day, Paramount Pictures and Michael Bay announced a June 27th, 2014 release date for a fourth film. Iron Kruger would pen the script, and Steve Jablonsky would score the film, as each had for the previous previous film. The film is set 5 years after the events of Transformers Dark of the Moon. Shia LaBeouf did not return in any future installments. Mark Wahlberg was instead cast in the lead role as new character Cade Yeager. In November of 2012, casting began to search for 2 more leads: Isabella Cornish, Nikolai Peltz, Gabriella Wilde, and Margaret Qualley were all considered to play Cade's daughter Tessa Yeager, while Luke Grimes, Landon LeBourne, Brendan Thwaites, Jack Rayner, and Hunter Parrish were all considered to play Tessa's race car driving boyfriend Shane Dyson. Bay announced on his website that Rayner would portray Shane and that the 4th film would start the next installment in the overall series. The film was to be a darker sequel to Dark of the Moon and have a different feeling. Peter Cullen, who voiced Optimus Prime in the films, was to reprise his role. Tyrese Gibson was in talks to reprise his role as Sergeant Robert Epps from the original trilogy. Glenn Morshower stated that he was contracted for 2 films and he was to reprise his role. It was later announced that he would not return until the next film. With a budget of $165 million, filming was expected to take place in London between April and November of 2013, once Pain and Gain, another film that Bay was directing, had finished editing. On January 8th of 2013, it was announced that Rayner was joining Wahlberg in the lead. On March 26th of 2013, Nicola Peltz was cast as the female lead. Bay confirmed that the movie was to be in 3D. Bay revealed to Collider that actor Stanley Tucci had joined the cast and that the film would be the first feature film to be shot using smaller digital IMAX 3D cameras. On May 1st of 2013, actor Kelsey Grammer was cast as the lead human villain named Harold Anninger. On May 6th of 2013, actress Sophia Myles was cast in a major supporting role. That same month, Chinese actress Ling Bingbing and comedian T.J. Miller joined the cast. Actor T.J. Miller would be playing the best friend of Wahlberg's character, who is a mechanic. Also revealed were 2 Autobots, who would have the following alternative modes: a black and blue 2013 Bugatti Veyron Grand Sports Vitesse named Drift, and a green 2014 C7 Corvette Stingray concept named Crosshairs. A truck from Western Star Trucks would be Optimus Prime's new alternative mode for the movie. Bumblebee's new alternate mode was revealed to be a modified vintage 1967 Chevrolet Camaro, which later transforms into a 2014 Chevrolet Camaro concept. A green military vehicle, later confirmed to be Hound, and a white emergency response vehicle were also revealed. Filming began in June of 2013 in Detroit, Chicago, Austin, Los Angeles, and Hong Kong, and the film was released on June 27th of 2014. Transformers: The Last Night, 2017. In March of 2015, Deadline Hollywood reported that Paramount Pictures was in talks with Akiva Goldsman to pitch new ideas for the Transformers franchise's future installments. The studio intends to do what James Cameron and 20th Century Fox have been doing in planning 3 Avatar sequels, and what Disney has done to revive Star Wars with sequels and spin-offs. Paramount has wanted to have their own cinematic universe for Transformers, similar to Disney's Marvel Cinematic Universe, and DC Comics, Warner Brothers, DC Extended Universe. Goldsman is the head of the future projects and worked with franchise director Michael Bay, executive producer Steven Spielberg, and producer Lorenzo D. Bonaventura to organize a writer's room that incubates ideas for potential Transformers films. The writer's room members include, and there's a lot of them, Christina Hodson, Lindsay Beer, Andrew Bear, and Gabrielle Ferrari, Robert Kirkman, Art Markham and Matt Holloway, Zach Penn, Jeff Pinkner, Ken Nolan, and Geneva Robertson Dworitz. Kirkman left the room after just 1 day to undergo throat surgery. In July of 2015, Akiva Goldsman and Jeff Pinkner were announced as the 5th Transformers film's screenwriters. However, on November 20th, due to Goldsman's commitment creating a writer's room for G.I. Joe and Micronauts properties, Paramount began to negotiate with Art Markham and Matt Holloway, as well as Ken Nolan Nolan to write the film. Lindsay Beer and Geneva Robertson Dworet were also brought aboard for writing duties. Did you get all that? After Transformers Age of Extinction, Bay had decided not to direct any future Transformers films, but in early 2016, in an interview with Rolling Stone, he stated that he would return to direct the fifth film, and that it will be his last Transformers film. I wish he'd make up his mind. Paramount Pictures spent $80 million on production in Michigan in return for $21 million in state incentives under agreements entered into before the state legislation eliminated the Film Office Incentive Program in July of 2015. In April of 2016, Paramount hired cinematographer Jonathan Sella. On May 17th, Bay revealed the official title of the film to be The Last Night on his Instagram account, where he also posted a production video showing a close-up of Optimus Prime's face with purple eyes instead of blue and his face mostly discolored. The official Twitter account showed a 19-second short video in Morse code that translates to "I'm coming for you May 31st. On May 31st, it was revealed that Megatron would return in the sequel. Then came Bumblebee in 2018. Bumblebee is a spin-off and reboot film centered on the Transformers character of the same name and set in the 1980s. The design and style of the film included both elements from the current franchise and influences from the 1980s Transformers Generation 1 toy line. Principal photography on the film began in July of 2017 in Los Angeles and San Francisco, California. It was released on December 21st of 2018 to positive reviews. Following the film's critical success, Hasbro intends to continue and evolve the franchise similar to Bumblebee. And then finally, at this point, we have Transformers Rise of the Beast from 2023. In March of 2019, producer Lorenzo D. Bonaventura announced ongoing developments for a follow-up to Bumblebee. By January of 2020, it was officially announced that a sequel to Bumblebee was in development, with a script written by Joby Harold alongside an adaptation of Transformers Beast Wars with a script written by James Vanderbilt. The film was then scheduled for release of June 24th of 2022. That May, while in November, Stephen Capel Jr. was hired to serve as the director on the project, which serves as both a Bumblebee sequel and Beast Wars adaptation. In April of 2021, Anthony Ramos was cast in one of the lead roles for the film, with Dominique Fishback in final talks to play the lead role. The project was a joint venture production between Hasbro, E1, and Paramount Pictures. Principal photography began in June of 2021, with the official title announced as Transformers Rise of the Beasts, confirmed to be set after the events of Bumblebee. Rise of the Beasts was originally scheduled for release in June of 2022, but was delayed until June 9th of 2023. My Pet Monster is a character that began as a plush doll first produced by American Greetings in 1986. It has horns, blue fur, a fanged smile, and wears breakaway orange plastic handcuffs. The property was sold to Saban Brands in 2012. Then in 2018, Hasbro acquired the My Pet Monster brand from Saban Brands. The My Pet Monster character began as a plush doll first produced by AM Toys, a subsidiary of American Greetings, in 1986, as one of the few plush dolls marketed to boys at the time. My Pet Monster was popular in the late 1980s and early 1990s. The doll has blue fur, horns, and fanged smile and is recognized by its orange plastic handcuffs. The handcuffs could also be worn by children and came with a breakaway link so that the child could simulate breaking the chain. Several versions of the doll have been released in various sizes and other attributes. Other characters were also created with brightly colored fur and unorthodox names like Gwonk, Wogster, and Rark. Their popularity allowed a wealth of merchandise, including coloring books, golden look books, frame tray puzzles, and various other items. Toymax released a 22-inch tall talking My Pet Monster doll in 2001. In 2020, Funko and Super 7 released figures based on the original plush, both under license from Hasbro. In September of 2024, the loyal subject signed a deal with Hasbro to relaunch the host of legacy brands, including My Pet Monster. They announced that a new line of products would be launched in fall of 2025. The character's popularity spawned a live-action direct-to-video film in 1986 about a boy named Max who becomes the pet monster after being exposed to a statue changing when hungry. Dr. Snyder, the scientist who originally discovered the statues, and the legend behind them, wants to kidnap him for publicity purposes, while Max's sister helps him out of the crisis. A pilot for an unproduced series, it ends ends on a cliffhanger as Snyder is exposed to a statue of a much larger and more menacing monster and begins to transform. My Pet Monster also spawned a children's cartoon series that ran for one season on ABC, co-produced by Nelvana Limited and High Tops Video in association with Golden Books. It gives a completely different origin for the creature than the live-action film. The show follows Monster, who lives with a boy named Max. When Monster wears his handcuffs, they turn him into a stuffed animal. Max often puts the handcuffs on Monster to keep his existence secret from others. Max's sister Jill and his friend Chucky are the only ones that know his secret. The two main adversaries in the show are Mr. Hinkle, a neighbor who always thinks Max is up to something but is not quite sure what, and Beaster, a large monster who hates light and tries to bring Monster back to Monsterland. Beaster, though immense and fierce, is incompetent. He can be stopped by magic cuffs, which reduce him to a smaller, though still alive monster, or by his own bungling, and sent back through a warp portal to his own world. He wears dark glasses to protect his sensitive eyes, which he can use to see in the dark. Beaster appears in nearly every episode as either a primary or secondary foe. On one occasion, he is scared back through the portal to Monsterland, not by light or the cuffs, but by affections of a smitten female gorilla. In the final episode, it is also shown that Beaster hates to be hugged, even more so than being exposed to light. Though not a breakthrough success, the cartoon show significantly boosted sales of the already popular plush toy. Much of the voice cast of My Pet Monster reunited in 1989 for Beetlejuice, another cartoon show with a surreal theme and a supernatural world populated by fantastic monsters. Reruns of all 13 half-hour episodes aired on Teletoon Retro in Canada from September 5th, 2011. Next up is the Barbie movie, and I'm not going to get into depth into the toy because I actually made a documentary last year, a comprehensive documentary, which I'll link down in the bottom, so I'm not going to rehash that. It's pretty comprehensive. It's got a lot of interviews, and it's very interesting how the doll materialized. But as far as the movie's concerned, Barbie is a 2023 fantasy comedy film directed by Greta Gerwig from a screenplay she wrote with Noah Baumbach based on the fashion dolls by Mattel. It is the first live-action Barbie film after numerous animated films and specials. Starring Margot Robbie as the title character and Ryan Gosling as Ken, the film follows them on a journey of self-discovery through Barbie Land and the real world following an existential crisis. The supporting cast includes America Ferrera, Michael Cera, Kate McKinnon, Issa Rae, Rhea Perlman, and Will Ferrell. A live-action Barbie film was announced in September 2009 by Universal Pictures, with Lawrence Mark producing. Development began in April of 2014 when Sony Pictures acquired the film rights. Following multiple writer and director changes and the casting of Amy Schumer and later Anne Hathaway as Barbie, the rights were transferred to Warner Brothers Pictures in October of 2018. Robbie was cast in 2019 after Gal Gadot turned down the role due to scheduling conflicts, and Gerwig was announced as director and co-writer with Baumbach in 2020. The rest of the cast was announced in early 2022. Principal photography occurred primarily at Warner Brothers Studios, Levisden, England, and at the Venice Beach Skate Park in Los Angeles from March to July of 2022. Barbie premiered at the Shrine Auditorium in Los Angeles on July 9th of 2023 and was released in the United States on July 21st. The concurrent release with Universal Pictures Oppenheimer was a catalyst of the Barbieheimer phenomenon, encouraging audience to see both films as a double feature. The film grossed $1.447 billion and achieved several milestones, becoming the highest grossing film of 2023 and the 14th highest grossing film of all time at the time of its release. Named one of the top 10 films of 2023 by the National Board of Review and the American Film Institute, Barbie received critical acclaim and other accolades, including 8 Academy Award nominations, among them Best Picture, winning Best Original Song for What Was I Made For. The song also won the Golden Globe Award for Best Original Song, while the film received an inaugural Golden Globe Award for Cinematic and Box Office Achievement. The plot revolves around a stereotypical Barbie and fellow dolls reside in Barbie Land, a matriarchal society populated by different versions of Barbie. Ken and a group of discontinued models who are treated like outcasts due to their unconventional traits, while the Kens spend their days playing at the beach, considering it their profession. The Barbies hold prestigious jobs in law, science, politics, and so on. Ken, or Beach Ken, is only happy when he is with Barbie, and he seeks a closer relationship with her, but she rebuffs him in favor of other activities and female female friendships. One evening at a dance, Barbie is suddenly stricken with worries about mortality. Overnight, she develops bad breath, cellulite, and flat feet, disrupting her routines and impairing the aura of classic perfection experienced by the Barbies. Weird Barbie, a disfigured doll, tells Barbie to find the child playing with her in the real world to cure her afflictions. Barbie follows the advice, and she travels to the real world, with Beach Ken joining her by stowing away in her convertible. After arriving in Venice Beach, Barbie punches a man for groping her and is briefly arrested, and then she and Ken are both arrested after not paying for new clothes. Alarmed by the doll's presence in the real world, the CEO of Mattel orders the recapture. Barbie tracks down her owner, a teenage girl named Sasha, who criticizes Barbie for encouraging unrealistic beauty standards. Distraught, Barbie discovers that Gloria, a Mattel employee and Sasha's mother, inadvertently caused Barbie's existential crisis after starting to play with Sasha's old Barbie dolls and drawing Barbie dolls with dark emotions and thoughts. Mattel finds Barbie and attempts to put her in a toy box for remanufacturing, but she escapes with help of a mysterious elderly woman named Ruth. Gloria and Sasha arrive just in time to rescue Barbie from Mattel's executives, and the three travel to Barbie Land with the executives in pursuit. Meanwhile, Ken learns about the patriarchy and feels respected for the first time. He returns to Barbie Land to persuade the other Kens to take it over. The Kens begin to indoctrinate the Barbies into submissive roles, such as agreeable girlfriends, housewives, and maids. Barbie arrives and attempts to convince the Barbies to be independent again, but becomes depressed when she fails. Gloria expresses her frustration with the conflicting standards that women are forced to follow in the real world, and her speech restores Barbie's confidence. With the assistance of Sasha, Weird Barbie, Ellen, and the discontinued dolls, Gloria uses her knowledge from the real world to deprogram the Barbies from their indoctrination. The Barbies then manipulate the Kens into fighting among themselves, which distracts them from enshrining male superiority into Barbie's constitution, allowing the Barbies to regain power. Having now expressed systematic oppression for themselves, the Barbies resolve to rectify the faults of their previous society, emphasizing better treatment of the Kens and all outcasts. Barbie and Ken make amends, acknowledge their past mistakes. When Ken bemoans his lack of purpose without Barbie, she encourages him to find an autonomous identity. Barbie, who remains unsure of her own identity, meets with the spirit of Ruth Handler, Mattel co-founder and creator of the Barbie doll, who explains that Barbie's story has no set ending and her ever-evolving history surpasses her roots. After bidding goodbye to the other dolls and Mattel executives, Barbie decides to become human again and return to the real world. Sometimes later, Gloria, her husband, and Sasha take Barbie, now going by the name Barbara Handler, to her first gynecologist appointment. Robo Sapien is a toy-like biomorphic robot designed by Mark Tidden and produced by WowWee Toys. Released in 2004, the Robo Sapien is pre-programmed with moves and also can be controlled by an infrared remote control included or by a PDA. The product sold over 1.5 million units between April and December of 2004 and was named Toy of the Year by the Toy Retailer Association. The toy is capable of walking motion without recourse to wheels within its feet. It can grasp objects with either of its hands and throw grasped objects. It has a small loudspeaker unit which can broadcast several different vocalizations. The robot uses 7 motors and maintains balance by using 2 triangles, one inverted above the over. As the lower part of the body leans to one side, balance is maintained by tilting the upper half to match. The robot's remote control unit has a total of 21 different buttons with the help of 2 shift buttons. A total of 67 different robotic executable commands are accessible. Robo Sapien Rebooted is a 2013 science fiction family comedy film starring Bobby Coleman, Holliston Coleman, Penelope Ann Miller, David Eigenberg, Joaquim de Almeida, Kim Coates, Jay Head, and Peter Jason. Produced by Arid Productions Incorporated, Arc Productions, Crystal Sky Pictures, and Brockwell McNamara Entertainment, and distributed by Anchor Bay Films and TVA Films. It is based on the toy Robo Sapien. Produced by Avi Arad and Stephen Paul, written by Max Botkin, from a story by Arad, and directed by Sean McNamara, with music by John Coda. The film is about a young boy who befriends a robot. The film was theatrically released on May 28th of 2013 by Anchor Bay Films and TVA Films. The plot involves Alan Topher, an inventor at the advanced technology company Kinetech Labs, develops a highly sophisticated robot intended for search and rescue missions. However, upon discovering that his creation is to be Repurposed for military use, Alan reprograms the robot to escape the facility. During its escape, the robot is damaged and later found by 12-year-old Henry Keller, who repairs it and names it Cody. With no memory of its origins, Cody forms a close bond with Henry. As their friendship grows, Cody begins to regain fragments of his memory. When he fully recalls his past, Henry makes the difficult decision to return Cody to his creator. Feeling remorseful for separating them, Alan eventually returns Cody to Henry. During this time, Alan also forms a connection with Henry's mother, Joanna. Meanwhile, Kinetech intensifies its efforts to recover the robot. They locate and confront Cody and Henry, prompting Cody to activate a hidden flight function to escape with Henry. They reunite with Henry's sister Megan, but soon discover that Kinetech has kidnapped their mother and Alan in an attempt to lure Cody back. Determined to rescue their loved ones and stop Kinetech's dangerous plans, Henry, Megan, and Cody set out on a mission to confront the corporation, rescue Joanna and Alan, and prevent the misuse of Cody's technology. In March 2007, WowWee, the company that makes the toy RoboSapien, announced that it planned to produce a feature film about the toy that would combine live action and computer-generated elements. WowWee entertained a partnership with Arid Productions, run by producer Avi Arad, who was interested in RoboSapien since the toy debuted. Time reported the planned film as part of a growing trend to make films based on toys, citing the 2007 release Transformers and Bratz the movie. Arad took an active role in developing the lead character for the film. He worked very closely with art director Shane Nakamura and design team at WowWee. In August of 2008, feature film rights were officially sold by WowWee to producer duo Arad and Stephen Paul, the latter producing films under Crystal Sky Pictures. The film was revealed to be titled RoboSapien Rebooted, and in the negotiation, WowWee reserved the worldwide right to market toys related to the film and to receive a portion of returns for other merchandise related to the film. Sean McNamara was hired to direct the film. Filming took place in New Orleans in 2008 from March 24th to April 25th. The city was chosen because Arad became familiar with it when he attended the National Association of Television Program Executives conventions there in the 1980s and 1990s. He also chose the city to take advantage of tax breaks and its scenery. The story was also rewritten so it would recognizably take place in New Orleans. In September of 2010, Arc Productions, formerly Stars Animation, joined the project with Crystal Sky and Arid Productions. RoboSapien Rebooted was originally scheduled to be released in 2009. The film was released in the US on May 28th of 2013. RoboSapien Rebooted has a box office total of $290,502. During its original release, it made $288,055. Bratz is an American fashion doll and media franchise created by former Mattel employee Carter Bryant for MGA Entertainment, which debuted in 2001. Bratz continued to be popular during the early 2000s. The 4 original 10-inch dolls were released on May 21st of 2001. Yasmin, she was Latino, Chloe, she was white, Jade, East Asian, and Sasha, African American, with Megan, Scottish redhead, being added to the group in 2002 as a 5th member. They featured almond-shaped eyes adorned with eyeshadow, adding lush and big glossy lips. Bratz reached great success with the expansion to spin-offs including Bratz Kids, Bratz Boys, Bratz Babies, and Bratzillas, and a media franchise consisting of a discography and adaptations into a TV series, a web series, a live-action film, and video games. Global sales of the entire franchise grossed $2 billion in 2005, and by the following year, the brand had about 40% of the fashion doll market. The Bratz doll lines have provoked controversy in several areas for their stylized proportion to fashion-forward clothing, capitalizing closely on pop trends. Since the brand's launch in 2001, franchise distributor MGA Entertainment got embroiled in a lengthy legal dispute with its rival Mattel over the rights to its design, which ended in 2011 with MGA as the victors. Related litigation is ongoing in a lawsuit by MGA alleging Mattel's theft of trade secrets. MGA has paused the Bratz brand since the onset of the litigation and rebranded it several times throughout its lifespan, with the first of those coming in 2010 after Mattel's first lawsuit, only returned later that year to commemorate the brand's 10th anniversary in 2013. Bratz changed to have taller bodies, an all-new logo and branding, and continued through 2014 in an effort to return the brand to its roots. As a result, none of the 2014 product line was made available available in North America. In July of 2015, Bratz relaunched a second time for 14 years with new doll lines and introducing a new main character, Rhea, to the debut lineup from its 2001 launch, as well as a new slogan and website design. The bodies were changed to be 10 inches tall again, but with new bodies and head molds. These dolls were met with negative reactions from fans as the brand was more oriented towards younger kids rather than tweens and teens like the previous dolls. Due to the poor reception and sales, the dolls were once again discontinued in 2016. In the fall of 2021, Bratz released reproductions of the first edition Bratz dolls from 2001 and the popular Rock Angels collection from 2005 to celebrate their 20th anniversary. Since then, Bratz have continued to reproduce various dolls and collections from the early 2010s, as well as produce brand new doll lines for the first time in almost a decade. Bratz the Movie is a 2007 American teen comedy film based on the fashion dolls of the same name from MGA Entertainment. The film is directed by Sean McNamara with a screenplay by Susan Estelle Jansen from a story written by Adam D. Lapina and David Ellenberg. It is the first live-action film based on the doll line after numerous direct-to-video animated films and a television series. It stars Natalia Ramos, Skylar Shea, Logan Browning, and Janelle Parrish as the members of the group, with Chelsea Staub, Lainey Kozan, and John Voight in supporting roles. The story revolves around a group of 4 teenage girls, the origins of their friendship, and the social pyramid that tries to make the Bratz conform to archetypical high school cliques. Principal photography took place in Los Angeles between February and March of 2007. Bratz was released in the United States on August 3rd of 2007 by Lionsgate. It received negative reviews and grossed $26 million worldwide. The plot revolves around Yasmin, Chloe, Sasha, and Jade, 4 teenage best friends, and are about to start their freshman year of high school together in Los Angeles. There, Meredith Baxter Dimley, a rich, popular, and extremely controlling student body president, wants everyone to belong to a clique and goes about organizing students. However, Meredith dislikes the independent spirit of the 4 girls and immediately realizes they will pose a problem to her plans, plotting to ruin their friendship and make them conform to her prefabricated cliques. Chloe is a soccer player and meets Cameron, on whom she instantly develops a crush, distancing herself from her friends. Sasha is recruited as a cheerleader and joins the cheerleading squad. Jade joins the science club, then meets Dexter and discovers a passion for fashion design. Yasmin joins the journalism club, but later decides to focus on singing before she meets Dylan, a popular yet laid-back jock, who is deaf but can lip read, who misses being able to listen to music. Though the girls try to make time for each other, they are all busy with their own respective interests and new friends. The friends begin to drift apart as they are compelled to stay with their cliques due to Meredith's plans. 2 years later, an accidental food fight causes them to get detention for breaking Principal Dimley's statue after Meredith sends her pet dog Paris to attack Chloe from flirting with Cameron. The girls realize that they miss being close friends and decide to recover that connection. They also try to get the other schoolmates to socialize outside their cliques. However, the girls find out they are not invited to Meredith's second super sweet 16th birthday party, but they are forced to work for Meredith due to Chloe's mom having a job serving food. At the party, Meredith decides to expose Yasmin's secret, video footage of her dancing and singing with a face mask. When Dylan and Yasmin's brother Manny starts doing a Congo line and everybody joins in, Meredith is humiliated. The party ends disastrous when Meredith accidentally gets smothered on her cake and thrown into the pool with her friends. The next day at school, the girls decide to be part of the talent show to win a scholarship. Meredith is always the one who wins, yet the Bratz are prepared to take her down. Later, Meredith tries to blackmail the girls by using an embarrassing photo to have them quit the talent show. This results in her plans to backfire, with everyone else's secret being revealed publicly. This idea brings all the cliques together again, and the girls perform an elaborate musical number. Meredith constantly attempts to steal the spotlight. In the end, there is a tie. Meredith gets the trophy, but the girls win the talent show and they decide to give Chloe the scholarship. They are offered an appearance at a red carpet gala by an MTV vice president, while Meredith and her father, Principal Dimley, attempt to foil the girls' attempt, but fail. On Rotten Tomatoes, Bratz received a 10% rating based on 79 reviews. The average rating is 3.4 out of 10. The site's critical consensus reads, full of mixed messages and dubious role models, Bratz is too shallow even for its intended audience. On Metacritic, the film has a score of 21 out of 100 based on 18 critics, indicating generally unfavorable multiple reviews. Audiences polled by CineScore gave the film an average grade of a B+ on an A+ to F scale. Bratz grossed $10 million in North America and $16 million in other territories for a total gross of $26 million. Gem, also known as Gem and the Holograms, is an American animated musical television series that ran from 1985 to 1988. The series is about record company owner Jerrica Benton, her singer alter ego Gem, and the adventures of her band Gem and the Holograms. The series was a joint collaboration by Hasbro, Sunbow Productions, and Marvel Productions, the same team responsible for G.I. Joe and Transformers. The creator of the series, Christy Marks, had also been a staff writer for the aforementioned programs. The animation for most of the episodes was provided by Japanese animation studio Toyo Animation. 11 episodes in the opening sequence were instead provided by the South Korean studio AKOM. Hasbro's first Gem toy line consisted of 8 dolls, each packaged with a cassette tape, a few accessories, and a poster, priced at $15 per doll. The cassettes contained the theme song Truly Outrageous and 2 other songs performed by Gem and the Holograms, or the Misfits. The toy line also included the Gem Star Stage and Gem's Rockin' Roadster. As of June of 1986, Gem's sales surpassed those of their competitor Barbie and the Rockers. By September of 1987, more than 3 million dolls had been sold since the toy line was introduced. In September 8th of 2011, Hasbro issued a press release announcing its attendance at the New York Comic-Con from October 13th to the 16th of 2011, where it would be showing new and upcoming products at its booth, including those from Gem and the Holograms. In June 27th of 2012, Integrity Toys Incorporated announced their plans to release a new series of collectible fashion dolls based on the TV series. The special edition Hollywood Gem doll became available at the Hasbro Toy Shop booth during Comic-Con International in San Diego at approximately retail price of $135. The Gem doll sold out on day 2 of the convention. In October 5th of 2012, the 4 then upcoming dolls in Integrity Toys' new limited edition collectible lines were presented with pictures. Classic Gem, Jerrica Benton, Synergy, and Rio Pacheco, with a suggested retail price of $119 to begin shipping in late November of 2012. Pre-orders were accepted through Integrity Toys Network and authorized dealers. As of 2016, Integrity Toys had produced more than 40 different dolls based on the TV show. In September of 2024, the Loyal Subjects inked a deal with Hasbro to relaunch a host of legacy brands, including Gem and the Holograms. In 2025, the company started a collection of dolls beginning in February with the release of a 12-inch Gem doll. More characters joined the collection in the following months, including AJ, Kimber, and Shauna. Gem and the Holograms is a 2015 American musical drama film produced and directed by John M. Chu, written by Ryan Landals, and starring Aubrey Peoples as the title character, Stephanie Scott, Haley Kayoko, Aurora Pernille, Ryan Guzman, Molly Ringwald, and Juliette Lewis. Loosely based on Christy Marks' 1980s animated television series Gem, the film was produced by Allspark Pictures, a subsidiary of Hasbro Studios, and Blumhouse Productions. Chu's interest in developing a film adaptation of Gem is based on having grown up watching the original series with his sisters. He had attempted to make the film 11 years earlier, but was rejected by Universal due to the cost. Gem and the Holograms was theatrically released on October 23rd of 2015 by Universal Pictures. The film was a financial failure, grossing $2.3 million worldwide on a $5 million budget, and was not well received by critics. The plot revolved around Jerrica Benton and her younger sister Kimber, live with their Aunt Bailey and 2 foster sisters, AJ and Shauna. The 4 girls frequently videotaped themselves playing music and wearing colorful outfits, but the shy Jerrica refuses to be videotaped. While singing, Jerrica discovers that due to Aunt Bailey's financial problems, their house will be auctioned. To vent her frustration, Jerrica puts on a wig and makeup and records a video of herself singing a song she wrote. Jerrica is interrupted just before she is about to delete the video, and Kimber uploads the video to YouTube. The video attracts millions of views in a single day. Jerrica is offered a record deal by Starlight Productions and travels to Los Angeles with her sisters. They meet music producer Erica Raymond and her son and Rio. Erica is polite and courteous with the quartet, but shows particular interest in Jerrica, who she sees as a potential superstar. The girls settle down in LA and discuss their next move. They have brought along a small robot called 51N3RG.Y, pronounced Synergy, which was invented by Jerrica's deceased father, Emmett. The robot suddenly activates itself and leads them on a scavenger hunt. Each clue represents something Jerrica did or wanted to do with her father. The objective is to find several missing pieces designed to fit into the robot to be fully activated. The girls find the first piece on the Santa Monica Pier. They find the second clue in a guitar once owned by Emmett when, by coincidence, the band plays live. Rio and Jerrica begin to develop romantic feelings for each other, but to Erica's dismay, Erica assigns Rio to another singer in an attempt to keep him away from Jerrica. Aunt Bailey tells Jerrica via FaceTime that their house is going for auction in a few days. Desperate to save the home, Jerrica asks Erica for an advance. Erica says she will oblige if Jerrica agrees to leave her sisters and go solo. Jerrica relents, believing Erica's decision will benefit her sisters and Aunt Bailey. When Jerrica's sisters find out, they denounce her for leaving them out of the deal and depart. After a doll solo performance, Jerrica becomes regretful and visits the LA house where she used to live with Kimber and her father. Jerrica's sisters arrive and reconcile with her. They vow to help finish the scavenger hunt, and Rio joins them. Jerrica realizes that the last piece of the puzzle are the earrings Emmett bequeathed to her, but Erica had them taken during the first visit to Starlight. The earrings are now stored in Erica's office. Rio and the girls break into Starlight and almost get caught by Erica, but succeed in retrieving the earrings. The reward is a final holographic message from Emmett. The group also discovers Rio's late father's will, which grants him a majority of Starlight shares, effectively putting him in control of the company. With the house safe, Jem and her sisters perform live. Rio chats with rock journalist Lindsay Pierce, who offers the band the Rolling Stone cover. Pierce asks Rio what to call the band. He suggests Jem and the Holograms. In the mid-credits scene, Erica, who has now been terminated from Starlight, seeks out a group of punkish young women in a seedy junkyard. She attempts to convince them to form a band to rival the Holograms. When their leader, Pizzazz, learns that Jem and Rio are dating, she takes Erica inside their trailer. Graffiti on the side of the group's trailer reveals their name as The Misfits. Dun dun dun. With the recent success of the live-action reboots of G.I. Joe and the Transformers, Hasbro was rumored to be considering a live-action film with Universal Studios. Hasbro and Universal had signed a 6-film contract in 2010, or a new incarnation of the animated series. On March 20th of 2014, a live-action motion picture adaptation of Jem and the Holograms was announced to be directed by John M. Chu. Chu has said he had spent 10 years developing the film with producer Jason Blum. The film's musical producer, Scooter Braun, stated that he drew influence from his work on the career of Justin Bieber. It was later revealed that the original Jem writer, Christy Marks, was not involved in any part of the film's production. In response to her having no part or consultation on the film, Marks defended Chu's sense of ambition for the project via Facebook and left it up to the fans to decide whether or not the project was a smart decision. Her lack of involvement was not permanent, however, and she was granted a minor speaking role near the end of the movie. In April of 2014, it was announced that Aubrey Peoples had been cast as Jem, with Stephanie Scott as Kimber, Haley Kayoko as AJ, and Aurora Paranua as Shauna. Peoples had admitted being initially unfamiliar with the franchise, although she subsequently became familiar with it and became a fan quickly. Other parts were announced throughout the next couple of months, with actor Ryan Guzman cast as Rio, announced on April 30th, Juliette Lewis's involvement on May 19th, and Molly Ringwald on May 20th. Principal photography began on April 22nd of 2014 in Van Nuys. Later on May 19th, shooting was underway in Los Angeles. Shooting ended on May 24th of 2014. On October 23rd, 2015, Chu stated he wanted to make a crossover film between Gems and the Holograms with Transformers and G.I. Joe. Monster High is an American multimedia-supported fashion doll franchise created by toy designer Garrett Sander and launched by Mattel in 2010. Aimed at children ages 7 to 14, the franchise features characters inspired by monster movies, sci-fi horror, thriller fiction, cryptids, folklore, myths, fairy tales, and popular culture, centering around the adventures of the teenage children of monsters and other mythical creatures attending a high school of the same name. Though the fashion dolls are the main focus of the franchise, a 2D animated web series and 15 animated TV specials films were released to accompany them, as well as video games, a series of young adult novels written by Lisa Harrison, and other forms of merchandise. The franchise quickly became very popular among children and was extremely successful in terms of earnings for Mattel. It was worth $1 billion in its third year of existence, with more than $500 million in sales annually, and was at one point the second best-selling doll brand in North America. 2 spin-off toy lines were launched as companions to Monster High: Ever After High in 2013, based on fairy tales and fables, and Enchantimals in 2017, featuring human-animal hybrids. However, sales declined in 2016, prompting Mattel to reboot the franchise with a revamped aesthetic and a new fictional universe. The reboot was a commercial failure, eventually leading to the discontinuation of the franchise in 2018. Monster High relaunched a second time in 2020 with the release of new dolls representing horror, goth film cults, culminating with the 2021 announcement of an animated TV series and a live-action musical film, both produced by Mattel Television and premiered on Nickelodeon in October of 2022. The premise: in the fictional American town of New Salem, the teenage children of famous monsters and other mythical creatures attend a high school called Monster High. The school is renowned for allowing all species of monsters to enroll in it. This is in contrast with other schools that exist in the franchise's fantasy world, which are reserved for one type of monster only. For example, a vampire-exclusive school. The characters' stories were told through the TV series, web series, films, the official website, as well as through diaries, booklets included with the dolls. Since the franchise's beginnings in the late 2000s and early 2010s, Monster High has valued diversity among its characters and their visual appearance, personalities, abilities, and cultural backgrounds. Monster High the Movie, titled on screen as just Monster High, is a 2022 musical fantasy film directed by Todd Holland, produced by the television division of Mattel and Bright Light Pictures. Based on the Monster High fashion doll franchise by Mattel, it is one of the 2 projects announced on February 23rd of 2021, alongside an animated series as part of a second Monster High brand relaunch. A sequel titled Monster High 2 premiered on October 5th of 2023. The Hug-A-Bunch was a 1980s toy line from the Kenner Parker Brothers companies and Hallmark Cards. Starting in early 1985, the companies manufactured the Hug-A-Bunch dolls, each of which held a smaller doll called a Huglet in their arms. During that year, the line generated over $40 million in sales. The title characters in the franchise lived in a place called Hug-A-Land. The toys inspired Hug-A-Bunch, a 1985 television film produced by Filmfare Communications. Written by David Swift and directed by Gus Jekyll, it earned a Primetime Emmy Award for Outstanding Visual Effects. Produced for the U.S. with $1.4 million, it was the most expensive TV special ever produced at the time, along with a making-of special. It was released on VHS, Laserdisc, and Beta by Vestron Video's Children's Video Library. In the film, a girl travels through her mirror into Hug-A-Land to find a way to keep her grandmother, the only one who knows how to hug, young. Aw, how sweet. Max Steel is an American media franchise produced and owned by multinational company Mattel. Originally released as a line of action figures marketed from 1999 to 2022, the Max Steel name has expanded to live action films, animated series, and video games. The original figures, based on the first TV series, were similar to the original 12-inch G.I. Joe toys, consisting almost entirely of different versions of Max Steel, the main character, and one or two of his enemies, a couple of vehicles and 2 or 3 special packages. The original toy series ran from 1999 to 2012. At the end of that period was substituted by a different series of toys with the same brand name, but with a change in quality and design intended to tie into the companion TV series in 2013. The 2013 line did not exhibit 1/6 scale of the original and reduced the number of articulations and action features of the figures. Max Steel was simultaneously developed into an animated series of the same name, which originally aired from February 25th of 2000 to January 15th of 2002, followed by 9 direct-to-video animated films being released annually from 2004 to 2012. A reboot aired on Disney XD in the United States, where it had premiered on April 1st of 2013. Max Steel the Movie is a 2016 superhero film based on the action figure line by Mattel, which was co-produced by its Playground Productions division with Dolphin Film and Ingenious Media. Open Road Films released the film theatrically on October 14th of 2016 in the United States, while I Am Global handled its European and Asian distribution. Directed by Stuart Hendler and written by Christopher Yost, the film stars Ben Winchell, Josh Brenner, Anna Villafane, Andy Garcia, Maria Bello, and Billy Slaughter. It chronicles the adventures of teenaged Max McGrath and alien companion Steel, who combine their powers to form the superhero Max Steel. Filming began on April 29th of 2014 in Wilmington, North Carolina, and concluded in late May of 2014. Max Steel was panned by critics who dismissed it as generic, unoriginal, and forgettable, while also criticizing the character development, performances, and visual effects. The film was also a box office bomb, grossing $6.3 million globally and overall against a budget of $10 million. Ouch.